Thank you so much. Welcome to what will be an extremely exciting day. My name's Jim Tanburn, and I'm moderating or facilitating the day. And I'd just like to introduce our two opening speakers with their welcoming remarks. First, we have Mr. Sergio Ermotti, who is Group CEO of UBS and Chair of the Board of the UBS Optimus Foundation. Mr. Ermotti.
Good morning and welcome. Dearest State Secretary, dear ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to welcome you to the Social Impact Bond Conference organized jointly by the Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the UBS Optimus Foundation. And of course, I'm encouraged to see so many representatives from various governments as well as from leading NGOs, foundations, and academia with us today. One motivation unites us all, that it is that despite the desire to work together and to mobilize new financial and non-financial resources and further improve how aid is delivered to ensure large-scale positive change. As chairman of the UBS Optimus Foundation, I'm very proud of the work we are doing. In particular, our pioneering efforts in the social finance space to help vulnerable children, their families, and communities. And I know firsthand from conversation with our clients that they are increasingly looking to invest their wealth to drive positive and sustainable social change. A new generation of philanthropists want their philanthropy to be more impactful, more hands-on, and more networked. They are looking for professional, transparent, and outcome-focused approach. For many, this means exploring new philanthropic and investing tools like development impact bonds, where you can earn a result-based return while doing good at the same time. Others take a more traditional approach. But one thing is for sure, they all want a real and sustainable social return. Innovative development financing vehicles can deliver this. They are complementary to existing development efforts and not a means to replace them. There is growing recognition that we need to explore all options because, quite frankly, the resources needed to reach the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are huge. We need to recognize that to achieve real sustainable and scalable impact, a collaborative approach is critical. The issues facing us today are too large and too complex to tackle alone, so we need to understand how we can work together better. Today, you will hear from some of the world's leading practitioners and thought leaders in the field and have the opportunity to discuss new social finance mechanisms and their potential for scale. What's already clear is that in the current economic climate, traditional funding streams are under severe pressure. The UN estimates an extra $2.5 trillion a year is needed to achieve the SDGs. I think it's clear that getting more people more money and more focus on scalable impact is important. Private capital will play a major role in this process, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals recognize this. And it has already started. We have people here today who are pioneering innovative new vehicles. I'm proud to say that last November, And with our partners, including USAID and MSD for Mothers, we launched the world's first development impact bond in maternal and child health. The program is focused in Rajasthan, India, which has one of the highest mortality rates for mothers and newborns in the world. Complementing existing government efforts, it aims to save the lives of thousands of mothers and babies and improve the quality of maternal care generally in private health facilities. This follows close on the heels of our Educate Girls DIBs, the first ever in education. Now is in the third year of operation. It is focused primarily on improving schools enrollment and educational outcomes for thousands of otherwise neglected girls, also in Rajasthan, India. It was designed as a proof of concept to show potential investors how such program can deliver both social and financial returns. And I'm pleased to say that it's on course to achieve its target, and the UBS Optimus Foundation, as the upfront funder, remains on track to recoup its initial funding. And last but not least, together with the Rockefeller Foundation and the Yunus Social Business, we will shortly launch the first social success node, an innovative financing mechanism for social business. So we and many others have started, and now the focus needs to shift to impact and scale, delivered efficiently and effectively, and with a bold mindset. Large-scale change will not happen overnight. It will require the inputs from many sources: philanthropists, investors, bilateral and multilateral donors, as well as the private sector. And that's the reason we are here today. We have already seen that this collaboration is happening more and more as many investors, outcome payers, and others realize the huge potential of co-creation and co-investment in helping to resolve the social challenges we face. As I mentioned earlier, we have representatives here today from governments, bilateral and multilateral agencies, leading NGOs, and academics. And I believe this shows that impact bonds and other innovative mechanisms are today taken seriously by the major players who can effect real and meaningful change. I'm excited about the future because through the greater use of innovative and social finance vehicle combined with the power of partnership, we can improve the lives and the futures of the millions less fortunate people. It's now my pleasure to hand over to the SECO State Secretary, Marie-Gabrielle Ineichen-Fleisch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dear Ambassador, Mrs. Katzmann, Vice President of the IDB, dear ladies and gentlemen, geschätzte Damen und Herren, Mesdames et Messieurs, it is a great pleasure to open this conference together with Sergio Ermotti, the CEO of UBS. And on behalf of the Swiss government, let me warmly welcome you to Zurich, in particular also the guests that have traveled from far overseas. We were overwhelmed by the interest in this conference, which gathers participants from bilateral development aid agencies, foundations, the private sector, NGOs, multilateral development banks, governments, and academia. Together, they represent more than 80 organizations and 18 countries. We're very happy to have you all here today. Ladies and gentlemen, we all ask ourselves, since the SDGs have been decided by the world community, how can we collectively achieve the UN Agenda 2030? As estimated by the OECD, and Chairman Ermotti has mentioned it, we will have to close an annual investment gap of some $2.5 trillion US. That leaves us with two options, either to increase the financial volume or to increase the efficiency of the spending. That is why today's subject, impact bonds, comes in handy. It addresses actually both dimensions. Impact bonds have the potential to raise additional funds from the private sector, but they also promise a higher spending efficiency. Why? Well, because only measurable and verified results will actually be paid. The focus is indeed on results achievement. In its most elaborated form, an impact bond shifts the risk of non-achievement of public service delivery to the investor. This is so because the investor pre-finances the bond, thereby protecting the public budget. This is the case, on one hand, with social impact bonds, where the outcome payer is the government, and on the other hand, donor agencies, international organizations, or philanthropic foundations that pay for results achieved by a development impact bond. Today's conference will allow us to first, of course, take stock of these innovative instruments, but also to discuss if impact bonds, or put more generally, if pay-for-success mechanisms, if they hold what they promise. And thirdly, of course, whether they are a scalable proposition. And in this context, we should identify the constraints and the responses to make them actually scalable. The idea of this conference was born out of the Employability Social Impact Bond Program in Colombia, which was the first social impact bond in a developing country. SECO was a driving force behind the $8.6 million US program by committing over $4 million US in 2016, together with the Colombian government and with the Multilateral Investment Fund of the Inter-American Development Bank. We look forward to sharing with you initial results and insights from this program this morning. Two other projects which have to be mentioned in this context are our colleagues from the Swiss Development Corporation, from SDC, provided up to 10 million Swiss francs performance-related contribution for an innovative humanitarian impact bond of the International Committee of the Red Cross. This 10 million out of a total budget of 26 million, together with Belgium, Italy, UK, and the Spanish Foundation. The objective is to build and to run 3 new physical rehabilitation centers in Africa. Another example comes from quite close and comes from the canton of Bern. While the concept of pay-for-success mechanisms is well established in Switzerland by way of what we call eine Leistungsvereinbarung, that is, a contract which defines delivery criteria against payment, it was the canton of Bern which has broken new grounds. It has launched a social impact bond in 2015 in order to foster the integration of refugees in the labor market. The experiences both of SDC and the canton of Bern, with their interesting and innovative impact bonds projects, will be presented and discussed in the breakout sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, the SDGs concern us all. More effective and efficient programs are not just a question in development cooperation and humanitarian aid, but they are also relevant for all governments and stakeholders. They are relevant because, on one hand, funds in general, but of course especially public funds, are limited. And on the other hand, because the needs to reach the Sustainable Development Goals is vast. Luckily, we see a growing potential for social finance or impact investments to raise additional funds for the SDGs. Let me give you 4 reasons. The first reason is that there are huge untapped private resources ready to be invested. As interest rates in the Western world remain at historic levels, very low, investors are eagerly looking for new investment classes. Impact bonds may not always offer higher returns, but they are expected to have returns uncorrelated to traditional asset classes, which offers, of course, promising diversification opportunities. The second reason is that there is an evolving generation of wealthy individuals who give much weight to social and environmental benefit. Of course, they also want to see financial profit. These individuals are willing to accept higher risks for greater social and ecological impact. The third reason is that the many pay-for-success mechanisms have already been implemented and that there are valuable lessons learned available. If taken into account, they should help to further improve impact bonds, leading to programs that are more successful. And the fourth reason is digitalization. New technological possibilities enable us to communicate faster, to gather more data, and to share knowledge on successful approaches more rapidly. Data is the new gold of our time, and more data and new technologies on how to process them offer new ways on how to link payments with results. Ladies and gentlemen, where there is opportunity, there are usually also some pitfalls. What gets measured gets done, goes the saying. But what is measurable may not always be relevant in terms of policy. Social impact bonds, for instance, are not appropriate for complex problems with uncertain influences or results, like changing political systems to better address poverty reduction. In addition, there are ethical questions related to the notion of profit and development. And countries have their own preferences or social contracts on how to deliver public services. These questions will also be discussed today. With this in mind, I wish you all fruitful deliberations, new insights, and successful networking to move forward and bring pay-for-success mechanisms to scale. Finally, I would like to conclude with a thank you note. This conference was only possible due to a true partnership between SECO, SDC, the IDB Group, and the UBS Optimus Foundation. They all bring in different expertise, experience, and networks. My gratitude goes also to the UBS for providing their conference building in the heart of Zurich and for hosting us today. I sincerely hope that this conference can lead to new initiatives on a bigger scale. The closed session for outcome funders in the afternoon has no less than this aspiration. I am convinced we will witness some positive surprises at the end of the conference, and I wish you all much success and a very pleasant stay in Switzerland. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to our welcoming opening speakers. I think we're off to a flying start. As I say, my name's Jim Tanburn. I coordinate the Donor Committee for Enterprise Development, which is a club of mainly European, well, bilateral donors working on private sector development. There we are. I can remember my name now. I know quite a lot or something about private sector development. I know quite a bit about measuring results. I don't know much about development impact bonds, so I'm keen to learn today and facilitate great discussion. Both of our opening speakers pointed out that this is perhaps the first gathering of such a wide mixture of individuals from different institutional backgrounds and professional disciplines. And I just wondered if we might have a show of hands to see who's coming from which type of organization. Out of the list that I have is development agencies, foundations, impact investors, consultants, academics, civil society, and everyone else. So maybe if you just put your hand up if you work for a development agency, NGO, quite a few. Foundations, similar number, good. Investors, impact investors, some, fewer, yeah, excellent. Consultants, yes. Proud consultants, there we go. Academics and civil society, fewer. And everyone else. There's a few of everyone else. Excellent. Okay, now that's really useful. As I say, I don't know a huge amount about impact bonds. I noticed that the title of the event started out, I think, as social impact bonds and then became development impact bonds. Now we're at impact bonds, which is significant in itself. Who here actually knows relatively little and is coming to sort of find out more and explore the topic a bit? Not so many. Interesting. So who here would consider themselves expert in impact bonds? Okay, so pretty much everyone's in between. Most people here know something, but obviously keen to know more. I've talked to a lot of people in the last couple of days about this day, and as eager anticipation to know more about it. A couple of issues have stood out from those discussions. The first one, which Marie-Gabrielle and Ineichen-Fleisch referred to, is the scaling issue, that impact bonds are complicated instruments to set up, and if it's a relatively small initiative, that's a high transaction cost. So what we're going to be hearing about, I think, today are initiatives in the few million kind of scale, which is relatively small for the impact bond potential, and therefore the transaction cost is relatively high. And I think the enthusiasts would argue that if it was much, much bigger, the transaction cost would be proportionately much, much less, and the whole thing will be a whole lot more efficient. So the dilemma is, how do we go to scale while the thing is not yet fully rigorously proven in every respect that we would like for full comfort and security? That's my take on what people have been telling me. And the other one is that, and again, I think you referred to this in your opening, that this is going to be appropriate for some settings and not appropriate for other settings. And what do we know about that, and what do we need to know? So I'm hoping that that's going to come out a lot during the day. Contrary to the agenda, I'm not going to give an overview of the day and a sort of blow-by-blow account, because that would take too long. Just in broad terms, the morning that we have now planned is an overview of the full panorama of pay-for-results instruments. Impact bonds are one format, but there are many ways in which people can get paid depending on the outcomes that they achieve rather than the outputs. And then the afternoon will be drilling down in much more detail. There will be, everything will be recorded, so you might want to modulate what you say, or it's not yet clear exactly how the recordings will be used, but we're still hoping that you're going to be very, very frank and open and have a robust exchange of opinions and evidence and so on, constructive debate. We do also maybe have journalists here until the break, so that's something that you might wish to bear in mind, either for what you say or don't say. And not that we've got anything to hide, but I do hope that people are really open and honest about what hasn't worked as well as what has worked.